Ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing the offseason. The offseason, people think football and sports don't happen when the season's over. There's a lot happening behind the scenes. And here at First and Tuna Podcast, we want to make sure that us as fans are understanding how these players get so ready for the draft, for the combine, for the season to start. My guest today helps with a lot of that stuff behind the scenes. We see players all the time on social media, interviews. Miss Christina Kanu with Christina Kanu Consulting out of Virginia. Since we're talking football, let's go through some of her statistics. Old Dominion 40 under 40 list. Old Dominion alumni, runs a 4.6 40, shuttle time about 5.5, 32-inch vertical. Hair is great, nails are great. Christina Kanu. Welcome. How you doing?
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Oh my gosh. I woke up this morning super excited because I get to be a guest on the First and Tuna podcast. So I'm doing great. Tuna, how are you?
Look at you putting that PR to work. I love it. Thank you. No, seriously. I'm sure it's like exciting, not because it's here, but the fact that someone usually helping players and athletes get PR ready for this. Hey, you're on camera now. You get to talk about your work.
Yes.
I was really excited to have you on just because working closely with you work with a friend of our show, Lady Lib Sports and Entertainment, with her athletes. I really am curious of what your work goes into these athletes, because we do see the finished product, sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on how players take such things. But I want to talk about you first before we get into the work that you do. One thing that I mentioned, honestly, Old Dominion 40 under 40. If people don't know what that is, you went to Old Dominion University out in Virginia. Monarchs are some of the most impactful leaders in the community. Some of these trailblazers, they're highlighting you for being under 40 and making a path in your industry. Talk to me a little bit about that recognition and, some of the nice things they said about you.
Yeah, no, of course. I graduated from Old Dominion University in 2014. And since I know this is a football podcast, another fun fact, my freshman year in 2009, that was ODU's first football season. So of course, they started bringing guys in like 2007, 2008. So my freshman year, I attended the first ever Old Dominion University football game, but I am a proud Old Dominion alum. And one of the interesting things is, I made the class of 2024, which 40 under 40 list, which is highlighting 40 alum who are making a difference in the community in their respective industries. But it was my third time actually applying. And for me, that's something that's important to highlight because especially, with sports, you're not always going to get it the first time. There's several lists, there's several awards, there's several recognitions. Like you really have to remain committed to the work that it is that you're doing. So it was a wonderful day. I went back to Virginia with my dad. He was my plus one for the event. And I think for me, a lot of the reason why it was special is because in running my own business, they don't necessarily always select a lot of entrepreneurs. So I was one of the first entrepreneurs to make the 40 under 40 list. So of course that was just and I love my alma mater. So any single time I'm able to put ODU on the map, I'm always happy to do so.
Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations on that. I know when I saw that, it's special when your alumnus, I can highlight you in any way possible because there are so many people. Like however big your graduating class is, Old Dominion's known for their educational prowess as well.
Yes.
Like that is awesome. One thing I did not know, and this is terrible on my geography, I have family that lives in Virginia, and then I saw Old Dom is in Virginia, close by to that, and I was like, oh, how did I not realize that?
Right.
Stupid. Like stupid me. Making that list, like you say, as an entrepreneur, what do you feel like? I'll let you kind of gloat a little bit. What's been your biggest accomplishment you feel up to this point in your career, your business?
Oh my gosh. I think for me, one of the biggest accomplishments is actually being a full-time entrepreneur. So there's several people who go into business, but they also have like a full-time opportunity. And so they're doing both. And once upon a time, that was something that I was doing. But for me, I started my business in 2016. So next year, we're coming up on 10 years in business. And so for the last almost 3.5 years, I have been a full-time entrepreneur, meaning that I work for myself, being able to travel, being able to hire and have a team of 6 exceptional women who work for me part-time. Even though it's part-time, it's still really good because, payroll, that's something that you have to keep up with. But being able to help other people and really just being, I think also one of the biggest things for me is I have a son named Jace, who is my pride and my joy.
Shout out
And
Jace.
yes, shout out to Jace, class of, I can't remember when he graduates. I think it's class of 2035. And he is my favorite football player. But being able to always make his moments, make his games, make his practices, I don't have to put in PTO to be there for the moments that count the most. That for me is one of my proudest accomplishments in being able to run my business and be a full-time entrepreneur.
Damn, shout out to all the moms out there. Or
Yes.
shout out all the parents out there in general. Just, I know how important that is. Like me in my limited time, being able to be an athlete back in my day. God, I sound old
Hmm.
saying that. Like having, mom or dad there, like just, or any family make it to a game.
Yeah.
Like that's huge. Like those are memories, and those are things that maybe you're not going to get gratification right now, but it's going to help build a relationship with your kid down
Oh,
the road,
well,
I'm sure.
I get in trouble if I miss anything. So it's like he had asked me, he was like, "Are you planning on missing any games in the 2025 season?" And I'm like,
Damn.
Jace. Like, so I try. Typically, I try to block out every Saturday during football season to make sure that I am there, because there is something special about being able to look in there. But because I actually love football, I try to not be a sideline coach mom. And another fun fact, I actually was a football manager in high school. So I was a football
Nice.
manager freshman year through senior year. I knew how to fix a helmet, shoulder pads, all of the stuff. I ran the football and the block and tee on the field. So like that's a lot of where my love and understanding for football even comes from.
Nice. That just gave me a flashback of like trying to take off. Like even back, my last time playing football was 2010, 2011, and even then, like before the current jerseys are out right now, like
Yeah.
taking shoulder pads off and like
Oh
sweaty
God.
jerseys was like so hard back in the day. I can't imagine with like how technology has advanced with these jerseys now that they're basically part of their skin. Like I don't get how these guys take the jerseys off after
Oh
the
yeah.
game.
No, definitely not.
Such a random anecdote, so I'll stop talking about it. um, Diving into the PR stuff, my first question that actually popped in my head this morning, like I have a more like all professionally asking, I gotta be straight up. How hard is it telling guys to just stay off IG Live? Like nothing good happens on IG Live. Like just stay off there.
Oh gosh. And Pierce, we're cool. So ask whatever it is that you want to ask me. I'm definitely an open book. And that's actually something that when I'm doing media training with our guys, I'll ask them random out the blue questions that have nothing to do with football because so fun fact, when I was in college, I did a pageant. So I did one of the fraternities pageants. And what my pageant mom did is she would ask us random questions because the thing about media training is you have to get comfortable with answering anything, regardless of the circumstance. But we have very honest conversations with them, and I use examples of athletes who have done the wrong thing. And I'm like, you don't want to be him. And I also, use some scare tactics, but it's also true. I tell the guys that teams, they have people who are paying attention to your social media. So, and I also I have notifications for the guys. I'm constantly looking at their stuff. If I see anything that looks remotely sketchy, I'm telling them to take it down. But with IG Live, the problem with it is it's real time and you cannot get it back.
It's up there. It's
So
up there forever.
it's out there and people are watching it and they're looking at it and they're telling people to get on it. So even if you look at a situation like with Shannon Sharp, his infamous situation that happened over the summer,
I
it's
wasn't even gonna
like,
go there.
yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, you want to be very mindful of what it is that you're putting out there on social media because you don't want to do anything that's going to have a negative implication of you being able to get on a team or you being able to stay on a team. So they know not to play with me. They know I'm not playing these games with them.
Obviously, I hope that nobody that ever comes through your door has a Shannon Sharp moment.
I pray not.
I still don't understand. My first thought was always like, I think the most now infamous one in the last few years is because of how bad the ramifications were. It was John Morant with the Grizzlies.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm,
it's just like why? It's like just if I understand everyone's lifestyle backgrounds are a little bit different. Like you got to kind of operate differently. Like I'm not ignorant. I'm
yeah.
not stupid, but just stay off IG Live. Like that's just
Stay off of it. And also too, making sure we have a lot of conversations with our players about how be mindful of what other people around you they're doing, like certain pictures they're taking, certain videos, what they are sharing that you are tagged in,
Yeah.
because once it is out there, you cannot get it back. So we have a lot of preliminary conversations about any and everything, because what I try, a lot of my work is to make sure that we don't have any media situations that we have to go back and clean up.
Yeah, just take care of it now so that way it's not an issue.
Yeah, not an issue later.
Trying to hone it down a little bit more for some of these guys that are incoming for the draft. Me and Lady Lib, we talked about like Irv Mulligan, Nano Osafa Mensa, just some of the guys that are coming in between now and the draft in April, and then the free agency with undrafted guys that just miss out on the draft. Um, do you have like a laundry list that you're helping these guys with? What's most important? What's like not really talked about? Like, just
Yeah.
kind of what are you preparing these guys for, either with the in-person interviews with the teams or just getting ready to be on a team in general?
Yes, so it is a very long and grueling process. So typically, our work starts around the fall. So that is when, and shout out to one of the greatest women that I know, Rashida S. Liberty, aka Lady Lib. We have known each other in several capacities over the last several years, but our work together. So Christina Kanu Consulting serves as the public relations partner for Lady Lib in Sports and Entertainment. So what does that mean? We handle, my team handles all things PR for Lady Lib Sports and Entertainment, actually for her as well as for her players. So towards the end of, so around the fall, when agencies are honing in on who is it that they're interested in, what are the guys that they're interested in signing with, we start doing background information. So we're sitting in on meetings to get to know the guys, being able to introduce ourselves, being able to share what it is, the work that we actually do with the agency. And then once we, the guys, they play their last games, whether it is a bowl game or whatever the case may be. Once we take down our Christmas tree in January, the work gets started. So we have actually created a rookie media training program, which is exclusive to our Lady Lib guys. Because the interesting thing is that a lot of agencies, they are not offering media training to their guys. And the other thing is, and what I found is that a lot of universities, granted in college you go through public speaking, and then some, depending on the university and depending on how good you are,
Communications, something.
of course, yeah, communications, you're
Yeah.
doing interviews, but nobody really has time to like go and walk you through it. So from January until probably a week before the draft, I'm meeting with the guys about once a week. So in the beginning, a lot of the work I'm doing is I'm, similar to how athletes have to watch film, I'm watching film. I'm pulling all of their interviews, I'm reading their interviews, I'm seeing what's out there on the internet. I am seeing what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, do they ramble, do they say all of the time, do they look down? I'm just studying everything. Then from that, I am working with each individual guy, and again, I meet with them once a week, and we are just running through questions. So we have access to the NFL questions that teams are typically asking, and we're just breaking them into chunks. Yes. So
hit me with one or two. Train me like I'm an athlete. Hit me with one. What we
okay.
got?
Are you a cat or are you a dog?
I'm a dog.
Yeah. So that's a question that they're asking. What are your
What?
strengths? What are your weaknesses? Yeah, that's a question that they're asking.
What's the point of that? I've never heard that.
The point of the question is it's to understand how is it that you like, it's a character question. So some questions are skill questions. Some of them, they're trying to understand your personality. There's a question of, if you got drafted, who would you invite to, or if you were invited to the draft, who would you bring with you? What would you spend your signing bonus check on? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What's a cause you're interested in? Do you drink? Do you smoke? Like there's just about 50 questions, a bank of questions that they're pulling from. And so I'm like running through these questions with each of the guys, and as they're preparing. So for our HBCU guys, so one of the really good things about Lady Lib Sports and Entertainment is we have a commitment to every single year representing at least one HBCU player.
Mm-hmm.
I call her the HBCU Whisperer as an agency because our guys, they're always doing wonderful. So if you think of, Xavier Smith from FAMU, who plays for, of course, the Los Angeles Rams,
Yeah.
he did exceptional. He absolutely did exceptional. He's doing exceptional. We have nothing but love for Xavier, and he got a lot of his, he did really great at the HBCU Combine. So when I think back to that, prior to that, Xavier and I, we were doing media training to get you ready for those moments. So I'm working with each individual player to make sure that they're ready for their team interviews, making sure that they're ready because, for example, at the HBCU Combine, all 32 teams attend. So you're getting pulled. I know with Rob and Irv, they were meeting with, well over 25 teams per each of them.
I heard
So it
Rob
was
was
funny.
busy down there.
Oh yeah, he was super busy. So it was interesting because the guys are like, hey, sometimes they call me Miss Christina. Your questions were harder, and I felt very prepared because it's very grueling when we're meeting through them. Like I'm asking them the same question over and over again. Who are you as a person? How would you describe yourself? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? What is your style of play? What was your best game? What was your worst game? I also am teaching the guys how do you brag about yourself, but not having it come across as cocky or arrogant, because some football players, very cocky, very arrogant,
Yeah,
and
actually is my follow up question. I'll come back. I'll come back to that. Go ahead.
yeah. So just working through that, and then of course getting them ready for media interviews. So I'm really big on, there isn't an interview that the guys should be taking where I have not vetted it to make sure, one, that it aligns with who they are. Number two, I need to see the questions because I don't want them to ever be tripped up. I don't want, sometimes there's certain things that we might not necessarily want to talk about in an interview. So the guys know that if any media opportunities come directly to them instead of coming to us, that we're vetting them. So just making sure that they're ready for their teams, making sure that they're ready for media, making sure that we are telling their stories adequately, and then also just getting them prepared for the draft, the fanfare of that, making sure that, it can be a very overwhelming time. So we're providing that support. And then when they do find their home and which team it is that they're going off to, we're working with them just on anything that they need to get ready for that, still keeping up with them. I get media alerts on all of our guys, reading their interviews, me taking care of what's happening, and then corresponding with the comms teams with those teams if needed.
So much to digest there.
Yeah,
Great. No,
I know.
no, great answer. Very elaborate. Like really understanding. Like somebody who has no idea. Like okay, what actually is needed? Because I think at least a lot of independent creators, like more and more every year, are getting more into the draft and understanding some of the nuanced things that don't get talked about as much. Like everyone,
Hmm.
you've got the surface layer. Everyone looks like the physical stuff. Okay, their game tape, the 40 time,
Yeah.
the combine. And then as you dig deeper, you start realizing like, okay, then you got the interview process, and then you start hearing more and more stories. One of them that's more recent, I kind of want to get your take on it,
Yeah.
was Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders is very
Mhm.
polarizing. I'm a huge fan of his. I started watching Colorado games, and I don't even care about Colorado, like because of him and his and Prime being there.
Most of us didn't.
Yeah, and with he didn't do a lot of the workouts at the combine, but he did the interviews, and a lot of stuff coming out of there is some unnamed coaches saying that he like was not trying or like didn't really want to interview well if they felt he didn't want to go to that team. They called him like like arrogant, things like that. And
Hmm.
my take on that is, did you not know who you were talking to? Like, just because a dude is, cocky or confident, that's feels like that's who he is through and through. So if you ever have
Hmm.
a player like that, how do you really walk that line of, yeah, be yourself, because that's one of your best assets is being yourself.
Yeah,
That can go a long way in a lot of different areas, but then also being professional. And like I feel like that's such a line to walk, and you can't
it
control
is.
what a coach says about you in that regard, because I think they're giving them a hard time, to be honest. But yeah, how do you help players walk that line with like individuality and being professional?
So this is something that I deal with every year. This is absolutely something I deal with. So for example, some of our players, they're a little bit more on the quiet side. So it takes, I've always been super extroverted and I'm raising a very extroverted child. But it's something that I have to understand when working with other people. Some people, they're just more reserved. Some people, they don't know how to talk about themselves. Some people, they have to form a level of trust, which is why media training is so important because it's helping to break that barrier. But one of the things I tell all of our guys is I want you to be authentically yourself. However, I have to make sure that you understand how it is that you're being perceived by other people. So, for example, some of the guys that do come across a little bit more on the arrogant side, like my shit don't stink. I have to, hey, let's add a little sprinkle in some humility. So let's add some certain language. Let's add how it is that we're talking about it. Let's be making sure that you're demonstrating that you are a team player. Then on the opposite end, I have some guys where they are way too humble. I'll use Rob McDaniel, for example. I had the pleasure of meeting Rob like at the Celebration Bowl, which was in Atlanta since I'm Atlanta based, and just such a great, oh my gosh, just such a great Southern guy. He just loves his family. He loves football. He loves his dog, which you'll learn about when you sit down with him. But I had to, one of the questions I asked the guys is like, list me all your accolades. Just name them to me, because I need to make sure that you know how to eloquently insert that in you, because it's really, Tuna, it's a balancing act. It really
Yeah.
is a balancing act. But like to Shador's point, I mean, he's Shador Sanders. And I mean, and he's Coach Prime's son. So I don't know what people were expecting. But again, it's still a certain level of, until you're on a team, you're not on anybody's team. So
Yeah.
there's still a certain level of respect that you do need to have. And also it's about, like we tell our guys, I don't care what team you sit down with, you make sure that you are consistent across the board. That way there aren't conflicting character reviews about who it is that you are. But like in Shador's case, he maybe did not want to talk to some of those teams, and so that maybe came across. We also have to understand too, like with our guys, I am very particular about when I train with them, because if they just had a really grueling day of workouts, if they seem off, I'm like, hey, you're not going to waste my time. And I'm not going to waste your time. Sometimes there's other things that go into why a person might interview a little bit off. So we have to also, keep that humanity at the front end of it too.
Everyone's got a life, yeah. And to reiterate my stance on it, I unless a coach or a scout puts their name on it, when you get the unnamed source or unnamed coach
Oh,
says
yeah.
this, I'm like, okay, you don't believe in it because you didn't put your name on it. Like,
Yeah.
it's Shador is going to be confident, be who you can afford to be is what I always like believe in, and like
he can afford to be whoever he wants to be. He's going to get picked up by a team.
And man, if I had an interview with the Browns, I'd probably not want to interview either. So that's one that always thinks back. Like I'm a players first kind of guy. I think back to Marshawn Lynch's days in Seattle.
Yes.
And I'm like, all right, imagine, like, role play with me here. Imagine you are Marshawn Lynch's PR guy, and he's going through the issues with the media of I'm just here so I don't get fined. How are you chopping it up with your boy afterwards? Of like, hey, Marshawn, let's like, what's your advice to Marshawn?
You can't say that. So I think and that's one of those that's an infamous just kind of media quote. I always, reference Marshawn Lynch when I'm working with guys. I think it's one of those things of, as a PR professional, this is a lot of the reason why it's critical that we are playing that middleman between the media and between the talent.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are situations where they do not want to interview, or sometimes the questions that are being asked, or it might be really redundant. They might not be in the mood. So that's why I'm really big on, and this, like when you've sat down like with our, team and all of that stuff, it's like, hey, what are the questions? What are you asking?
Yeah.
How are you phrasing this? What are we doing? No, we're not talking about this. Hey, let's rephrase this. So when you have someone who is advocating for you, you do that. But of course, I would always let our guys know, like, hey, you can't, like, so we sit down and we talk about each interview after it is they do that. Hey, what do you think that you did well? Because I want them to also be participants. Not, I already have like a 7-year-old, and that's the only person who I'm going to be lecturing on a day-to-day basis. So how do you feel like you did? What could you have done better? Maybe we need to phrase it like this, or hey, okay, maybe give shorter answers to try to make sure that you're answering the question in a way that's not going to come across as rude. But I think with Marshawn, he probably was just fed up. The other thing too is being mindful of how many interviews are taking place. Sometimes it just is overwhelming. So one of the things I failed to mention is sometimes I'm traveling with Lady Lib, so going to their pro days, going to their bowl games, going to that stuff. So I can sense when the guys are reaching the point of I'm over it. And so hey, we're done with interviews for today. That way you don't have a situation where you're getting a quote and then like people are able to put out like, hey, such and such was an asshole because of how it
Yeah.
was that they responded in an interview. So just kind of, playing that middle woman between the media and the client tends to help.
It's like I'm trying to like keep track of all these bullet points like as you're talking, like, and that's such a huge one that I think something that goes underappreciated from fans specifically, because
Mm-hmm.
we always get a snapshot of players' lives of a bad quote or a moment
Yeah.
or how could he be this way. It's like we forget that they are people too. They have bad
Mm-hmm.
days. You as an athlete, like, oh, woe is the guys that make all this money. It's like, yeah, but you always got to be on. You have to have this persona 24/7, at least until you get home. And it's like,
Absolutely.
God, like, think of your social battery. Like, I go out for like an hour and I'm already over people, and I can't imagine having cameras and all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a nightmare. And then another part that gets really forgotten, and I always feel not feel bad, but I feel like I sense the I don't know how to phrase this properly. Like, I don't want to say struggle, but there is a sense of that professional, like, getting ready that almost seems like probably not normal for a lot of guys, because you got to remember a lot of these guys come from neighborhoods, from backgrounds, from walks of life
Mm-hmm.
that are like, yeah, I don't trust the media, or I don't want to talk
Yeah,
this way, and it feels
absolutely.
very irregular. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how to have these guys like media acceptable, which is almost like, I'll just call it like almost like whitewashing a lot of
Yeah,
answers,
yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
especially when you get the repetitive ones of like, hey, tell me how you felt after you ruined this play in the game. It's like, it's so disrespectful. Like, okay, let me answer this so I don't get in trouble. um do you have that conversation with guys about like,
Yeah. So the thing
yeah,
about it is, especially when we're talking, revenue generating sports at the college level, a majority of these players, they're coming from, they're African American, coming from a variety of walks of life. So that's one of the things too, where sometimes there's and that's why I tell the guys, like, your story is your story, and we want to make sure that people know what it is that you want them to know about you. So
yeah,
I'm doing a lot of pulling that information out, as well as understanding what are your no-fly zones, what are areas of your life that you might not necessarily want to talk about, whether it is something that happened with a parent, a traumatic situation,
yeah,
you might have gotten in trouble with something, like really being able to understand that. But an issue that I deal with a little bit more so is for my players who have very thicker accents, especially because the region of guys that we're representing, we're dealing with a lot of my southern brothers. So we're dealing with, the Mississippis and the Floridas, and just very just like accents that we really have to work together to make sure that we're enunciating, to making sure that we're very clear. But I tell the guys to be proud of where it is that you're coming from,
yeah,
because oftentimes, especially from if you're coming from a smaller town, you are putting your small town on the map, you are putting your school on the map. So be very but I would be a horrible PR professional if I'm like, oh yeah, I mean, just talk however, just do whatever and show up however. No, we're making sure that you look camera ready. So is your hair cut? Is your hair retwisted? Is that shirt ironed? Does the lighting look good? Because we still want to make sure that you are a brand. We still want to make sure that you're representing yourself in the best way possible. But at the end of the day, I want you to be you. But if
yeah,
certain elements to you is problematic, in a safe space, we're going to talk about that, because I would much rather you hear it from me versus hearing it from the people on the internet who are horrible. Like one of our guys at the HBCU Combine, they're he interviewed really well. And when I was looking through, some of the tweets, someone had made mention of someone else was like, oh my gosh, like Irv did really good at it with his media training. And, Rashida chimed in. She's like, shout out to our PR partner who worked with him. And the lady said something about, some people said, well, maybe he said, a little bit too much, but it wasn't that noticeable. We had already talked about some of those different things. So again, they're not hearing something else from outside sources, because again, I'm watching the film, I'm very critical of what's going on, and I'm picking up on things that other people might pick up on, so that way we can fix it at home first.
I'm imagining you reference like you watch back their interviews and their media, scroll through their social media too, like rewatching tape. I'm imagining you're sitting in the room with them like a coach's film, like with running back, but
Yeah.
you're sitting with Irv. And I don't know if you've seen his videos, Mr. Go 30. He does those funny videos of
Uh-huh.
like post game, like making fun of the players. I'm
Yeah.
imagining you doing that with them. Like, see how you tweeted that right there? Yeah, let's not
Yeah.
ever do that. Don't do it like
Oh
that.
yeah. Oh yeah. And they know because I tell them, I said, I am paying attention to everything that you're putting out. Literally everything.
Yeah.
And I'm watching your interactions with people. I'm just paying attention to all of it. It's like I'm like a little mini stalker. If it's problematic, I'm telling you to take it down right now.
Yeah, I remember when Xavier came on, I think that was my first time really like obviously interacting with him. So I had
Uh-huh.
his Florida accent. My first thing, like one of my buddies asked me after, he's like, "Oh, how was it?" I was like, "It was cool. Like I don't get a chance to talk to a lot of people from Florida all the time,
Yeah,
and
of course.
I forget like if you're from like certain parts of the country, it's like, oh, he's not from Florida, he's from Florida. I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
Florida.
he already knew what I meant. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like his Xavier Leggett from the Panthers. He's got
Mhm.
heavy southern accent, and it gets talked
Mhm.
about in the locker room. It's just fun to see. Um, back to like the draft stuff. What's your number one goal between now and April? Because April's going to be a big date for a lot of
Mhm.
fans. Is it like obviously there's so many things fires you're trying to put out for guys? Is it just to get on a team? Is the biggest goal to make them the most amount of money possible? Like between now and April, May, how would you constitute like what success looks like for you for these players?
Yeah. So of course, overall the goal is to make sure that they get on a team. I think for me, from a PR lens, it's to make sure that their name is constantly in rooms. It's constantly being talked about. So it's setting up as many interviews as possible. So the last week or so, I've been going back and forth because we want to, on the front end, we want to get as many interviews lined up leading up to, so, for our guys, for Nana and Sheldon, who are participating in the Big 12 Combine in 2 weeks, we want to make sure that they are sitting down with as many people as possible on the front end. Then after their combine, after we see how they're performing, then we want to, take a couple of weeks. I try to leave the guys alone the 2 weeks prior to the draft. That way they can rest, they can get their mind ready, because once they get picked up by a team, then that's pretty much it. But really making sure that pre and post, lots of interviews, as well as, and then same for, for Irv and for Rob, who are participating in the Jackson State Pro Day in the week after, in the next 3 weeks, making sure that they're getting a lot of attention pre and post. The biggest question that I work with on the guys that they have to answer, it's the $1 million question. Why should a team select you? So I asked them that question in several different formats. What is your biggest asset on the field? Why should a team select you? If a team needed to use you to pick you up, what would be that reason? If you could talk to a team, what would you say? That's like one of the biggest questions that I'm working with them on, because that's their sales pitch. So essentially, that is your elevator pitch. That's your sales pitch. That is the biggest thing that I'm working with them on. I don't need fumbling, because some of our guys, they are doing local day visits. A lot of them, at their pro days, at their combines, they're going to talk with teams. Of course, the goal is to be able to get a top 30 visit. Like, we want to make sure that we are relentlessly ensuring that these guys, come the draft, they are top of mind. And it's not only about how it is that they're performing on the field. It's like, do I actually like this person? So it's like when we think about a Joshua Cephas who is with the Jags,
Yeah.
they love Josh. Josh has just such a fun personality. We want you to be memorable. That way, when these teams, when they are in their war rooms come draft weekend, there is somebody who is advocating for you because they remembered something that you said. So that's like the biggest thing for me. That's what I guess keeps me up at night, is how they're answering that question. So that's like one where we spend a lot of time workshopping that answer. That way they're prepared for it, regardless of the team that asked. And the other kind of thing too with that is I'll throw a trick question with the guys, like, hey, if you had to pick which team you were going to go with, who would it be? You're not allowed to answer that question. So
That's
it's like, yeah. And so I was working with one of the guys, and he's like, oh, well, I'd love to play for insert team. And I'm like, you fell for the trap. It would be an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to work with any of the 32 NFL teams, because they all have a lot to offer. That type of thing. The other thing too is I tell them, not only should the teams be interviewing you, you should be interviewing the teams too. So when they're asking you questions, always have a question to ask. So how would I fit in with the culture of your team? How would this be? Always having that. So again, it's just that fine tuning. That's where we're at with the process. And so that's a lot of what I will be doing over the next couple of weeks preparing for the draft.
Oh my gosh. I was trying to imagine like you had trying to help them find the balance of like, yeah, be yourself versus how to give a LinkedIn like interview
Uh-huh.
type answer, especially to NFL coaches. That's oh my gosh. I'm still thinking of the one question that you threw at me, the do you drink? I heard somebody else mention it, like an ex-player talking about his like they do ask you random questions like if you went out
Mhm.
with the team and there was like drinks involved, like what are you drinking? What are you ordering? And I'm just like I'm trying to think of like what is the proper answer? Like you don't want to lie
So
and say you don't drink. Like
the proper answer is so if you have ever drank before, yes, I have drank before, but currently I'm not drinking right now because I am very intentional about preparing my body for this process. So it's not
gotcha.
like, hey, I'm lit all the time, like, or it's
Oh yeah.
I like, yeah. So you want to be very mindful of not presenting yourself as like an alcoholic or a lush or whatever the case may be. So you answer the question, but then it's also too making sure that you're scrubbing your social media. Granted, these kids, they're not like us in the sense of they don't post as much. They might have like 3 posts on their actual timeline on Instagram. But making sure that there's not conflicting information. So if I ask you, do you drink or smoke? Or if you do smoke, you can't have your blunts all over social media. Like you
Yeah.
can't do that. So it's really the basis of it is they want to make sure that they're not like willingly selecting someone who's going to be very problematic and get their organization in any type of trouble.
Yeah, especially for like no slight on anybody at all. It doesn't matter if you're drafted first or 260th, but there's a level to it of like how much of a problematic I'd say or questions that could arise of your character. Like if you're the quarterback versus if you're like the 50th guy in the roster,
Yeah.
like they coaches will skew how they view those problems based on how much they're
Oh,
paying you.
absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
you gotta be super conscious of that. Let me see here. Hold on, I lost track of where I was. So sorry. Um, oh, there you go. Is there like a big no no besides the IG live? Is there a big no no that you're like constantly having to like not smack hands, but you're like teaching guys, maybe not even your athletes, but just even yourself too for social media?
Oh gosh. I
Don't
think
don't fall
big,
for thirst trap
it,
DMs. Is it?
yeah. So the biggest thing. So I know we spoke a little bit about Shador, but like with Travis Hunter, my spirit was so just upset
Oh
during the time period when he had gotten the Heisman because of
yeah.
everything that was relating to like his girlfriend or fiance or whatever it is that she is. I'm like, damn, all we're talking about is that we're not talking about the fact that he got the Heisman. Like that moment was just completely like just trashed, and I hated that for Travis. So something that we do talk about with the guys is just women, their dealings with them, that whole process. I have those, very, and Rashida, she has, her conversations, and I have my conversations because it's one of those things of like, hey, you can't have 50 different women coming to your pro day. Hey, if you are going, my favorite thing to watch, I enjoy watching the NFL draft. Especially, just the family videos and all of that stuff. And just, hey, if your girlfriend is going to be there, be very mindful of what it is that she's doing and this, that, and the third.
Mm.
Hey, remember, not everybody is your friend, and there's nothing worse than a woman. And I'm a woman. There's nothing worse than a woman scorned. So you want to be careful. Hey, you probably shouldn't pillow talk about the conversations you're having with teams with a woman who might not be in your life next week. So a lot of the thing about it is I'm significantly older than the guys, but not too like I'm not like a grandma to them. So a
No,
lot of
we're
them look at
millennials.
me.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
millennials.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So a lot of them they look at me like kind of like a big sister. So we're able to have like those tough like around Valentine's Day. I joked with them. I'm like, so y'all got a Valentine? I'm like, how many Valentines you got? But I just told them, I said, just be very careful because you do not want anybody, because sometimes teams they'll reach out to get the tea on you and they'll go through a woman. So we have those
Wow.
conversations because again, we just don't want to I am one of those people where I just want to err on the side of caution for everything and make sure that nothing negative can get out there about you, even with some of our guys who are dads. I think parenthood is an absolutely wonderful thing, but we're just very mindful of like, hey, don't make mention of like your kids' names because people are weird and creepy on the internet. Or if
Yep.
you have a million of them, we don't need to know that you have a million of them. Hey, I'm a proud father. Keep it pushing. So those are just some of those like for their very personal, intimate life. Just being careful. Like, yes, it's okay to be an open book, but be mindful about that because again, you don't know how people are going to perceive that information.
Yeah, not everything has to be public. And you said it
Yeah.
perfectly. Like, there's a lot of weirdos. Like, just even posting like your kid's face like online. It's like my niece like is nowhere on the internet. Like as much as
Yeah.
like much as I want to like love bomb and like squeeze her face because she's so like precious and cute. Like nowhere on the internet. Like don't post her nowhere. Like you just don't want people seeing that. You that sounds like a very specific anecdote of having 50 women show up at a pro day. It sounds like that's happened before.
I've seen some things. I have seen some things. I've been in the bathroom and just overheard conversations about players, not always necessarily ours, but just in general.
You hear from Mike? I'm here from Mike. I'm here
Yeah,
from Mike too. Damn.
like I just, and then I think also too, my significant other works in the in not in the football world but in the basketball world, so I just know how younger people operate and function, where it's like, okay, yeah, I think I'm here for Mike. Oh, you here for Mike? Like I've just seen so and just I've just seen and experienced lots of different things, and so because of that, I take experiences from other people and I just make sure, hey, at your pro day, we don't need a whole lot of people. If you want to invite your family, that's cool, but we don't need any chaos, because don't give your agency and your PR team another thing. One of the things that Rashida always says, she said, I'm not managing your women. I'm not doing that. So if you have some things going on, we're not taking care of that, okay?
I'm representing also, you, not
I'm
girlfriends
representing
A through E.
Yes, so we're not handling all of that. But the good thing about it, especially being a part of the Lady Lib family, is that we're very family oriented. So we're able to have, and especially when you're working with a woman owned agency, we're able to have those very candid conversations because we genuinely do not want for anything bad to happen that's going to have a negative impact on the guys in their future.
That's so hilarious. Like I know it's potentially a serious topic conversation because it can impact like not just obviously your reputation and your how people perceive you, but the on-field product too. If you just got so much drama at home, like if things ain't right at home, they're not gonna be right at work, type of thing.
Not at all.
Oh my gosh! So I have hopefully I'm not taking too much of your time today.
No, you're fine.
I have two questions and then one kind of thing we'll close out with.
Yeah.
We'll touch real quick on branding, marketing. Like everyone wants like a branding deal. Like how do you find the balance between not just the money side of things for players, but then also like, okay, what do you want your brand to stand for? What do you want your face to be? A representation of like things that benefits them as a person, like as a man as well. Like, is there a conversation around that, or is it just kind of like, okay, if it seems like a good contract, like we'll just run with it?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'll use an example. So Joshua Cephas, who's with the Jags, he was part of our 2024 draft class. Shout out to Josh. And so there was an opportunity for him to participate with the NFL choir at the Super Bowl. And we knew that Josh loved to sing, and we know how important that Josh's faith is.
I was surprised by that. I was surprised.
Yeah, definitely. And so with that, it's about making sure that we are selecting opportunities that align with who the guys are. That way we're not just forcing something. Not, okay, hey, we're just going to get you or go after this deal just because, or hey, they want you to go to this particular event just because. But one of the things is that a lot of our guys, they are very big into the community. So we have one of our players, Miles Brown, who, he has been in the CFL for several years. And so every year he's going back and he's talking to the youth program. He's from DC. So he goes back, he talks to them about mental health. He talks to them about identity and finding yourself. So it's just about aligning them with deals and opportunities that align with truthfully who it is that they are. Joshua Cephas. But the other part of that too is you want to make sure that you have the proper branding assets for that. So we were in Houston. We did a brand shoot with Josh during the off season. So I know, a lot of what you're talking about now is some of the things that the players are doing in the off season. Of
Yeah.
course, along with resting, catching up with their family, it's about kind of preparing for next year. So Josh, he loves golfing. So that's going to be something that, we're going to try to like explore, like if there's any golfing opportunities for him. But we wanted to make sure that he had like the proper branding assets, because something that is really important is athletes, yes, they're athletes, but that's not their only identity. They have a lot of other things to offer. So it's important to make sure that we're having those visual components that also tell the stories of who they are on and off the field.
That's such a very PR answer. I like that. I meant it as a compliment. And Rashida mentioned the Joshua taking up golfing, and then my comment was, at least it's not like snowboarding. It's not like he's not playing
Yeah.
pickup every day and rolling an ankle.
Oh,
It's
no.
golfing. Like, it's good for flexibility. It's
Oh
good.
yeah, he loves it. I believe all the receivers, they had went to Hawaii, I believe it was, from the Jags, and they had they were just golfing and hanging out there.
Nice. Yeah, we're big fans of Joshua over here.
Yes.
I want to kind of do like another role play. So
Of course.
so obviously you vetted our channel. You've had multiple guys come on here already. More to come.
Yes.
What's some PR tips you can tell me? How am I doing? Do I say do I much? Do I breathe in the mic too often?
No.
Like, what are my strengths and weaknesses?
I think the good thing, and of course, just super proud of you and just your evolution of everything that you've been doing with First and Tuna. First of all, I love the name. I love anything that is like a play on like football. That's something that's super exciting. But what I would say is, it feels like, my observation of the show is, it feels like home. It feels like it's very conversational.
Yep.
And I think that one of the really good things that, your audience probably doesn't see is what prep time you're doing for each of your guests. Like, you have an outline, you're, researching their backgrounds, you're figuring out who it is that they are, what are some of their recent accomplishments. So I think that that's something that's really phenomenal, that you're doing, that, and I'm really just interested to see. I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, I can't wait to see, where this podcast evolves into. And I think something else that was really interesting was the whole situation when the playoff game had to get moved. And like, even though, I don't live in LA, I don't live in Cali, but I was so interested to see, like, well, did they end up getting the buses to be able to take everyone? Like, I was so like invested. I'm like, did they get all of the buses to be able to bus everyone off? So I think
a crazy thing that happened. Yeah,
like, your commitment to just being committed round the clock. And I think also something that you do is the way in which you celebrate your guests. Sometimes people, they'll do an interview with one of our guys or one of us, and it's like, that's the only time we're really hearing from them, like during, and then that's it until the next time we sit down. But it's like, you genuinely are keeping up with what's going on. And I think that that's something that we love. So, I love that, you consider Rashida a friend of the show, me a friend of the show. Like that, I really do appreciate and enjoy.
Yeah, I don't give you guys enough, Rosa. Thank you for all the compliments, by the way, making my my ego feel great early early morning. I think not enough roses gets thrown to your guys' team, your guys' family.
Thank you.
I've told you guys straight up behind the scenes, but I'll say it publicly. I feel like I owe my very small platform that I have already to you guys, because out of nowhere, like, people who don't know, one of my first interviews, or two of my first interviews, were Rams players, one of them being Xavier Smith. And like, I reached out to you guys about it, like, no idea who I was. You got this dude with a weird name who people think it's a Dolphins podcast because it's fish related. Asking to interview one of our players. It's like, you guys had to put me on game on like how to do it appropriately, because it is a little weird sometimes, like reaching out and like either to a player or to an agent. I was like, man, I don't want to just seem like a weirdo fan of trying to get something out of you. It's like, no, I want to tell people stories. I'm trying to help the people who for some reason watch my stuff learn the game a little bit more, because I love football. Like, that's my first love. Like, I love it so much that there's so much that goes behind it. Like, I'm very interested in this stuff because we see the end product all the time. Like, okay, let me talk to somebody who's a friend of mine that actually trains in this stuff. So
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Well, of course, anything we can do for you. And as I was thinking about it, I'm like, if you ever do a kids series, because I'm, preparing to build out my son's brand, I would love for you to interview him, because he knows literally everything about football. It's just ridiculous.
I'll let him talk football forever. Like we'll get
Yeah.
him on. We'll get Little Liberty on as well.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely get Malik on.
Start the media training early.
Yes.
So my last two questions for you are like not even football related. Is how we're going to close out the show. Uh, First one, you're from Virginia. You're based in Atlanta, so you got a lot of East Coast, you got a lot of Southern roots. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm not sure how much time you've spent in California, but if you had to guess, like food wise, if we're putting up Cali food up against Virginian food, Atlanta food, what's taking the cake, and what do you vibing with?
Oh gosh, I would
Because
say Atlanta
we got
food.
tacos and burritos out here. I don't think that's
Yes.
happening there.
So
Talk to me.
I've only been to no, I've been to LA and I've been to Palm Springs, which I absolutely am obsessed with. I was there for some client work a couple years ago. And that was just like a beautiful place. I need to get back there. But I did like Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles when I went to LA. That was quite delicious. But no, food in Atlanta is pretty good. I am definitely a certified Georgia peach because I've lived in Atlanta the last like almost 11 years. So
Okay.
I love mac and cheese. I love the sweet tea here, but I love Mexican food. So the next time I come to LA, I definitely need to spend a little bit more time eating some tacos and burritos.
Hey, hit us up. Me and the girlfriend will take you around, take the family, or whoever
Yes.
comes out, the Lady Lib team, and we'll hit all the
Yes.
spots. We'll protect you in East LA. It'll be okay.
Yeah, please.
We'll protect you. Yeah, I remember when I talked to Xavier about that. He was talking about soul food. That there's no soul food in LA. I wonder if that's changed for him. Because
I hope so.
I don't see a lot of spots out here, but a lot of Mexican
No.
food. And then same thing I asked Lady Lib. Any words of advice for any young athlete, whether in high school, college, from a PR perspective, or just hey, you're trying to be that guy, you're trying to be the dude at the next level. One word of wisdom for these guys.
I would say to commit yourself to the process, every part of it. So the training that you need to do on the field, the training you need to do off the field, really looking at your body as a temple, and also understanding that you're that you are replaceable. There is someone who is coming after you, there's someone who is your peer, and there's someone who's ahead of you. So always making sure that you're putting yourself in the best possible position in every single area. Always outworking everybody, outwork yourself. And then also just making sure that you always have safe places to land, have your safe spaces. I always work with our guys too on like, what is it that you do when you're not watching football? How do you come down from the high? How do you decompress? Do you watch a movie? Do you listen to music? Do you pray? Whatever it is that you do. But again, commit yourself to the process and you will never believe how far that you can go.
I like it. Again, PR answers from the PR person. But they're perfect. They are good. I do believe in all those. You guys heard it here first. Be about it if you're going to talk about it in a very professional way. Where can everybody find you? Where do you want them to go look for you? And where are we going to see you next?
Yes. So everybody, again, thank you so much for having me. But you can follow me on social media, all platforms at Miss Kanu. That is MISSKANU.
Yep.
You can also, email me at info@ChristinaKanu.com, and you can visit my website at www.ChristinaKanu.com. And what's next is just, preparing for the draft. And being a very busy mom to a 7-year-old who is currently in track season, so I'm literally running laps everywhere. So,
literally and figuratively.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, we're next for us. We are thanks in part to you and the team. We are going to have some of your incoming rookies on the channel.
Yes,
Herb's coming excited. Up. Nana, Rob. Rob is one that's intriguing to me because he genuinely fits the mold for exactly what the Rams do on defense, and I'm like, yo,
that would be.
We can get like I told Lately, I'm first in line to buy a jersey of his if he comes to LA.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Yeah, wherever he ends up, we're gonna be super excited. But I do get excited about the Rams because I know how much you do care about them. But yeah, we're super excited for our rookies to sit down and talk with you. And then I definitely can't wait to watch and see how they did, and you report back and see if the training works.
That's right. From what I've seen so far, it works well. I'm gonna let you go. I think that's all I got. That's all I have. Yeah.
Awesome.
Everybody,
Awesome.
give her a follow, and we'll see her next time.